again, it's an estimate. Is it possible to get it wrong, that you've got the wrong useful life? Let's say your computer dies after 3 years instead of the 5 years you expected it to last. Absolutely it is. However, it still gives us a more accurate picture of the expenses that business is incurring rather than just putting the whole amount that we paid for the computers or the building into 1 month. Accumulated depreciation on the building is going to be a running total of how much depreciation we have incurred so far, right? The idea is that at any point over the next 24 months, we should be able, 20 years, 240 months, we should be able to stop and look at, say, month 180 and say, okay, we bought the building for this much, we have this much accumulated depreciation, so here's how much the building is worth at this point, because we've already used up a lot of its useful life. In order to account for that, we are going to debit depreciation expense. So this month we've incurred 150, and we're going to credit accumulated depreciation, which is a contra asset account, which means it's on the asset side of the balance sheet. It is not considered a liability because you don't owe it to anybody really. However, it is an asset that speaks directly to a different asset. Your business is going to be an asset that's listed at book cost. The building, is going to be listed at book cost. If you take away the accumulated depreciation, you should have an idea as to what the net worth of that building is right now. If you turned around and tried to sell it, that's the more likely price than the price that you paid for it. Another example of a contra asset account is like a bad debt expense. When you have accounts receivable, that is, you've got money that you're expecting to collect from your customers, you might want to set aside about 10 or 15% of that for what's called bad debt expense, and that money that you're owed, but you're probably not ever really going to collect, right? So, over the course of the month, when you have that contra asset account, if you actually do collect more than that 15%, then you can debit that contra asset account to decrease it and increase the actual amount of cash that you collect for it. This is what's known as writing off. So if you've ever had a credit card debt, you're not going to pay off and someone says, well, the creditor's going to write it off. What they're doing is that the money they expected to collect, they are now admitting that they're not going to, and adding to that contra asset account of bad debt expense.